Sui have a question or a statement?
Yeah, okay. Well, so many people at Barisan Socialists were aware of the arrest. I mean, you guys were expecting it. What was going on in your mind on that night before the ISD officers came? And also, did any one of you consider running away before the ISD officers come?
I think some of the Barisan cadres did decide to run away. So they did not arrest everybody. But the top cadres were all arrested. Because we don't know who is going to be arrested now. But I expect to be arrested because I knew I was in all the 3 lists. The option I had is to run away from Singapore. We did consider option of forming a government in exile. But we thought the idea, because it's not much point, you can't do very much at that time. So we will just go in and fight it out in prison, hoping that after merger we'll be released. Then we fight within the context of Malaysia, with our comrades in Malaysia, to have a socialist front throughout the land and breadth of Malaysia. And we believe at that time that with our united forces, the left-wing forces, we can bring about a radical change in the whole political complex of Malaysia. The fact that we are all suppressed has resulted in this present state of affairs in Malaysia, where the feudal and conservative elements start perpetuating their racialist policies. These racialist policies would not have been able to emerge if we have the influence in Malaysia, because our fight will be on class lines, not on racial lines. We will unite with the Malays, peasants, and the Chinese workers to form a united front to overthrow this feudal system and the British. At that time, the British owned rubber and tin industry, and Malaysia comprises the mainstay of British economic strength. About 400 pounds sterling of reserves were brought into British economy, and more than what they had in India and Pakistan. So they cannot afford to lose Malaysia. This again revealed in this book. So to them, to the British, Malaysia is a very strategic importance. So when this article was thinking about how to arrest these people, where there's no evidence to show that they are communist link, there's no subversion, no activity, that they were fighting strictly according to constitutional means. This article was scolded by the British cabinet, the Communal Secretary Duncan Sens. So he carried on this arrest because it's for strategic reasons, overall interest of Britain, not for tactical reasons. And so this is a political decision, not a security decision. They want to secure British interests. They know who are the real anti-colonial fighters. We know that if the left come to power in Malaysia, we will nationalize the tin and rubber industries. We will take over the main trade industries in Singapore. The entrepot trade was controlled by the British, especially by Sime Darby and all that. So we are getting no benefit from all this prosperity. What is the government doing when you cannot take over all the economic interests to the benefit of the country? They trusted Lee Kuan Yew because there's a secret agreement that if the PAP were allowed to take over power, to continue power, they will not endanger British military and vested interests. And one of the military interests, this again is revealed in this book, is an understanding that Singapore is part and parcel of the nuclear encirclement of China. This is very shocking because it means that Singapore had nuclear weapons stored by the British in case they would attack China. how can we allow this? If you are an independent country, you cannot allow this sort of thing to happen. The Barisan socialists and also Sosialis would not allow this thing to happen. And the British knew that we mean business. We are not people who just want to change flags. We mean to change substance as well. This is a bigger picture, the real fight between the British and us. Lee Kuan Yew is not important. He is a British man, chosen man.
Dr. Lim, when you were comrades with Lee Kuan Yew in the PAP, what was your relationship with him? Did you at any time, like Lim Hock Siew, irritated him?
At that time, before we break up, in fact, I go to his house anytime I like it. Even in night time, I can knock at his door and go and see him in Balestier Road. And then we discuss politics, we discuss about the manifesto of PAP. And in one of his by-elections, I helped him house campaign. It's only after we broke up, then I had to face him in the public forum, 2 public forums. There I irritated him. No compunction about that. In fact, the public forum held in the University of Malaya in KL, he lost face because he was telling lies after lies. So all I had to do is to expose his lies. And he just couldn't take it.
I remember one forum that he started off by attacking your brother, who is Lim Hock Siew.
Case of the Chinese school scheme. He was the leader of the May 13 demonstration, Chinese school demonstration. He led the Zhongzhen delegation and handed the petition to the British government. We were on very good terms. In fact, very often he made a speech in the assembly. After that, he came down and saw me there, asked me what I thought about his speech, getting a feedback from me. So we were very good terms. I had nothing personal against him, but he had a lot of personal things against me.
I must say you were politically very precocious. You only what, 32 then? Or
31.
31.
I think 3 years after 31, 32. Every time you see we matured very fast.
Yeah.
It was the war years.
31, 32 is still okay.
During the war, we went through a lot of experience. When I was 14, 15, after the war, we all were matured. We were thinking of how to free our country from colonial rule. We were living in an atmosphere where everybody was fighting for independence. India got independence in 47. Sukarno declared independence in 48. Then Mao Zedong declares the Chinese have stood up in 1949. And we were inspired by all these things. Ghana was fighting for independence. Kenya was fighting for independence. And Kenya, Mau was brutally suppressed by the British. So we have no illusion about the British ability to suppress us. We went to fight the British with our eyes open. In a way, we are unlucky to be still alive, because you can be expected to chill. To safeguard their property, they have no commodity exchange. How they massacred the students, university students in Calcutta, machine gun them in the streets. This is British. Where are the so-called merciful British gentlemen? No such thing. We threaten their interests, they will defend it to the hill. And in Kenya, the Mau were brutally suppressed. Jomo Kenyatta, right? And in this Congo, this Patrick Lumumba was assassinated on the orders of American President Eisenhower. This was revealed in the BBC. Eisenhower personally ordered the assassination of Lumumba after he was captured. So we know we are not playing just marbles. This is life and death struggle. We want to fight the British, we must prepare for the sacrifice. And this was this kind of spirit that we went in. And this kind of spirit that we stand so long in prison. Because it is all or none law. We don't go in half-heartedly. We know where we stand, we know what we are up to.
Any more questions or yes, Alex?
Dr. Lim, the PAP was at its lowest point, the lowest ebb, after the 61 Anderson by-election. Marshall won with 500 votes. What were the chances of merging, amalgamating with Organised, and seized the PAP in the internal voting under the party constitution and take over the CEC? And that was also the time when the 13, just before the 13 PAP candidate assemblyman changed side from the went over to the opposition. So the numbers of assemblymen, the PAP assemblymen, were reduced. I think it was 25 to 25 because Ahmad Ibrahim died and there was no by-election in Sembawang. So, do you think it was an opportunity then?
No, we have 13, only one has 3,
Yes.
16.
Right.
But then you see, this our friend Lim Hock will not support this kind of overthrowing Lee Kuan Yew. And UMNO also will not overthrow Lee Kuan Yew. Every time we threaten to overthrow him, these people abstain. And our 13 or 16 will not vote. And all-in-one, every time we had a resolution against the PAP, all-in-one abstained and left the assembly. And Marshall always support us. Marshall is only one. So SPA, Lim Hock and UMNO will never support us. So in theory, the assemblymen composed of PAP 26, 25, 26.
25. Ahmad Ibrahim died.
And 25, 25.
And there was no by-election in Sembawang. So it was a deadlock.
In fact, by-election is about, you cannot win them because this One will not vote for you.
No.
SPA will not vote for you. UMNO will not vote for you. So it's left 13 plus Marshall, 14. In fact, we were hoping that we have a by-election in Sembawang. The Minister for Health died. And I was supposed to be a candidate for Sembawang if they have a by-election. But they never held it. And the fact is, at that time when we were arrested, we were very busy preparing for the general election, drawing out the candidates, our manifesto, everything. We were not preparing for armed revolution. We thought we would definitely win the elections. We kept our strength, but we refused to have any demonstration. We restrained our membership. The trade unions supposed to have strikes on that. We tell them not to strike because we don't want to provoke any trouble. There's one example in 1962, where the May Day rally. May Day rally was a huge rally. About 200,000 people attended our rally in the Jalan Besar Stadium. Whereas Devan's May Day rally has only 2,000 people. And these 2,000 are mainly PWD workers who were given a day off and given food and transport plus pay. And then they only had 2,000. Whereas we had 200,000 and the whole stadium was filled. This is a demonstration of our strength. Which just in thinking back is not on the right that we shouldn't have revealed our strength. Then subsequently 2 months later, in June the 3rd. June the 3rd was then the National Day, not because it was a day when PAP came to power in 1989. We want to celebrate National Day, June the 3rd. And the PAP, of course, had their own June the 3rd celebration. But we were given permission. There's a lot of conditions. You know that all these conditions is very difficult to follow. You cannot speak on this, you cannot speak on that, you speak on that, they come and interfere. And I know if you do this, at this rally, they will provoke you and there will be trouble. And they use this trouble to suppress you. So we had a last minute cancellation of this rally. We had really mobilized about 50,000 people to attend the rally. But overnight we cancelled it. And the police were very surprised how we managed to cancel a rally of 50,000 overnight. At that time, there was no SMS, no handphone, no telephone. Just by word of mouth. Our organization was so tight that you could cancel a thing overnight. Because we knew there would be trouble. So to that extent, we were very, very restrained. Because we are banking on the general elections in 1963. Preserve our strength for general elections.
Any more questions?
Maybe the discussion.
Or statement or whatever. Arrest in 63. Did you anticipate that you'll be stuck there for 20 years?
When I wish my wife say goodbye to her, I say see you in 8 years' time. Because at that time, the longest detainee was born, Ahmad Mustaman. It was 8 years. It was in Malaysia. I did not expect to be so long. I thought Singapore will merge with Malaysia. I will become a Malaysian citizen. And I don't think we will be arrested for 20 years. So I was prepared for at least 8 years. But at the end of 10 years, I decided to make another 10-year plan. Because we have to be realistic. If you are not psychologically prepared, you sure break down.
Yes.
Prepared for 8 years, there's no doubt we are prepared for it. Because as the leaders of this movement, we cannot betray our followers. We have to stay firm. But Lim Hock Siew would have stayed firm if it was not a mental breakdown. Sukai, side diary, all this. No big deal.
10-year plan. I think we have lost this breed of political fighters, right? Yes.
Dr. Lim, would you have been a candidate if you not been arrested in the 63?
Yes. In fact, I was planning to stand for my election in Sembawang.
Sembawang. Why Sembawang?
Because the time was a by election.
By election.
During the election, sure, I will be elected.
Sure.
All of us were arrested.
Yes, Martin?
Dr. Lim, the question is, why do you think some are detained longer and some are not? Like, why you, Saad Zahari? Yeah, I don't understand that.
This thing you have to ask Lee Kuan Yew. But the excuse they gave was that I refused to renounce violence. In 1977, I was approached by the head of the special branch, Lim Chai Heng, and also the former head of the special branch, this Wang Suji. Both of them came to see me. So I thought it was something very serious. Two special branch heads come to see me. They want to settle the thing, settle my case. He said, all you have to do is to issue a statement to renounce violence.
Have you stopped praising your wife?
I said, you're asking me to stop beating my wife. I said, have you any evidence that I have been advocating violence or promoting violence? They just say like that. I said, if you have it, let me know. Then I denounce that. I've been strictly pursuing peaceful, legal, constitutional struggle. Now you want me to renounce violence, to give the impression that all the time I've been advocating violence, and now I'm repentant, I'm scared, I want to go out, so I renounce violence. It's tantamount to asking me to renounce meeting my wife. So on that score, I will not do it because I will be only adding to the propaganda that all these detainees were arrested because of participating in violence.
They still repeat the lies anyway.
So they still repeat the lies. I already said it in the press interview that I didn't renounce violence because it's ridiculous. Yes.
I think Sola mentioned in the previous session that she thinks some of you may have been detained for that long to prevent you from standing as candidates in future elections. I think there might be something in that. That's why you were told to renounce politics if you were to come out. That was one of the conditions. Do you think there's some truth to that?
You say you cannot win the election as an independent candidate. You must have a group of people supporting you. The Barisan Socialist was completely dismantled after we were arrested. By the time they want to release me, there was no Barisan Socialist, only a shell without substance. And it's so badly infiltrated by government agents that I'll be troubled by them if I to enter them. No point wasting my time. So you can't do anything by just being one person. I knew the political realities. Now, at the time of my release, that's 1982, September the 6th, the assistant head of the special branch, Mr. friend,
Not in China.
Zhong Jinming.
Chong Lim
Yeah, he was dealing my case. He said, Dr. Lim, I'm not warning you, I'm not threatening you. I'm only advising you. I have a standing order from who. This is the Konyula, because at that time a standing order from who. That if you show defiance after your release, we'll put you in the prison again without reference to the cabinet.
Yes. After that, yeah. You were, I think, a high-profile detainee. You think the feelers offered to you was because of external protest by Amnesty and those groups?
I was adopted a prisoner of conscience by Amnesty. Lee Kuan Yew wants me to leave the country. In fact, when this William, Prime Minister of Australia, came here, he told William, these two doctors can leave and you can take them. They are good doctors. You can take them. So they approached me twice to leave the country. I said, if I want to leave Singapore, it will be on my own volition, not by compulsion. Because this is my country, and I fight for its independence, and I die in this country. And I told the special branch, I have no right to stay than Lee Kuan Yew, because his father was born in Indonesia. I'm not sure he has a birth certificate in Singapore. My father and I were born in Singapore. Half the cabinet ministers were born in Malaysia. So who's going to drive out who? If I don't drive them out, it's very generous on my part. That's how I replied to them. So they stopped pressing me about this thing. Very interesting. Also, Rakyat Road holding center. One day they told me to pack up my things. They are going to transfer you. So I pack up my things, I put in a car, and start driving me to Changi. So we crossed the Changi Road, the office road to Changi prison. They say, hello, you are missing the road. Changi prison is here, not there. I said, no, we are taking to another place. I said, where about prison in the beach? So we went to the beach, Dave put his boat. He said, please go on the boat. I said, what the hell are you taking me to? He said, we're taking you to the boat. So that's how I know that we're going to the boat. So there was a police boat. He said, this is a police boat number 1. This is a boat that Lee Kuan Yew used to travel around the Southern Islands. Wow, big honor. So they told me that, give me a house, and then say, now you are a free man, you are released. I said, well, what, I'm released, I can go back to my home. They said, no, you cannot, you must have all these conditions. And I said, this is a sham release, to give the public a false impression that I was released. This is to pacify international public opinion. Because at that time, prior to the release in court, Lee Kuan Yew went to the United States. Jimmy Carter was the president. Jimmy Carter just snubbed him. He gave him only 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. And then he went to Congress. Congress all demand human rights. So he had to do something to save his face. So the only thing is to get Said Hardy and me into the islands to give the impression that we are released. So on the life there, to me, is very much better than in prison because I was allowed to move around the island. There were 2,000 people there. We are all very friendly. Surprisingly, I thought all the propaganda would be scared of prison, but they are all very friendly with me. And I was the only doctor on the island. So anytime they have an emergency, they came to see me. So at first, they gave me $300 a month. First month. Second month, 200. Third month, 100. Say after that, you have to survive on your own. I said, well, what are you putting me on this island? This is my prison, man. You have the obligation to give me money. Then he offered me a job in the dispensary. He said, you can work there 3 times a week for 2 hours each time. We pay you $300 a month. I said, in principle, I cannot accept this job because I'm still a detainee by the government. And I cannot accept a job from the government as long as I'm your detainee. You have the obligation to support me in this thing. So they refused. So my wife has to support me. And at the time I saw the patients, at first I didn't charge them. But in the end I had to charge them at least for the medicine and a little bit of excess, so I can survive on the island. And they gave me a lot of durians, fish, prawns. Every time they knew my wife was coming to see me, they gave me a lot of very good prawns and fish which they just freshly caught from the sea. They gave to me.
Did you get any domestic help?
No. I wash my own clothes. I live as though I was in prison. I was allowed my own TV, I see my TV. It was much easier than prison.
You love to write?
I was allowed to write. And at the end of the 4 years, they still want me to issue a statement. I said, no, nothing doing.
How come your Rakyat Clinic is still around today?
Well, when Dr. Posukai and I were arrested, Dr. Baka came over and took over the clinic, and he carried on single-handedly until Posukai was released in 1972 and joined him back in Rakyat Clinic. Then Sukai again was arrested in 1977. And then when he came out, he wanted to start his own clinic. So when I came out, I joined the Rakyat Clinic. That's why we carried on.
Yeah. It's actually very remarkable that Dr. Lim is still practicing at Rakyat Clinic today. How come? You want to rest?
As long as my mind is okay,
That's why you can write a memoir. Your mind is still very sharp, memory very good.
Yes.
I wonder if it's possible in a few minutes whether you could tell us how you kept your sanity during those long years in prison.
Well, it's a question of conviction. You know what you're doing is the right thing. I'm a socialist. I believe heavily in socialism. In a society where men doesn't exploit men. is something akin to a Christian who believes all men are brothers. And we all should live like brothers and sisters. I mean, the fact that there's a lot of turmoil in the world, in the capitalist world, about all this trouble, financial trouble, convinces me even more that socialism is the solution to mankind's trouble. We are witnessing now the end of capitalism. This is what Karl Marx said in the last century, 100 years ago, that is the self-destructive phase of capitalism. It's completely self-destructive because the contradiction cannot be settled. The accumulation of wealth is so intense into small part of population that the majority of the population just cannot turn around unless they turn around the whole system. That's why you got these Wall Street demonstrations, Occupy Wall Street. I believe in another year or so there will be an intense struggle in the Western world, and hopefully not with plenty of violence. Hopefully they can do it without violence. Do you think so? Yeah. Yes.
Can you just let us know which prisons you went to over the last 20 years? So that we have a bit of history on all the prisons in Singapore.
I survived many prisons. I went to Outram prison in 1963. That has been demolished. Then I went to Changi prison. Now that has been demolished. And from Changi, I went to Queenstown prison. Again, that has been demolished.
So we can't do on the trail of the prison life.
And then I was in the Central Police Station. Again, that has been demolished.
Is that the worst?
But Central, that's the worst. That's a horrible place. And then I went to Moon Crescent Center. Now it's turned into a criminal prisoners. And then I went to this Rakyat Road, which is still existing.
Were you in Queenstown?
Huh?
Did you go to Queenstown?
Queenstown, yes. Queenstown. Queenstown for 4 years. That was a terrible prison.
I used to go there.
There we were locked up most of the time. And in the cell we have a tin for our toiletry, which we have to wash the next morning. At night time we have what we call chamber pot. We cover all our toiletries, and then a small bowl of water for you to drink at night. The food is practically the same as business. But then I must say that for over 1 year, they put me in a very luxurious place. The home of 2 top special branch men. One is in Mount Rosie, another one is in Jervois Road. There we are allowed to live with the families as though you are a free man. They even encourage you to go out and walk, which of course I refused. And then at the end of the day, they want you to release a statement again. And that is the fear, which I know they are going to, and I refuse to be bribed into that. They want to soften you down, make you enjoy life, then you will know fighting spirit, then come the statement, you sign.
Did they offer Chinese reunion dinner?
Chinese?
Reunion dinner with your wife or what?
No, not when in prison. But in Tekong we have our own reunion.
Are you optimistic for Singapore's spring in here, for democracy? Are you optimistic now?
I'm afraid no. Because I don't see how this place can develop. Now it's dependent upon casinos to churn up the industries with all these ensuing immoral consequences. Then the export depends upon American market. Chinese don't need Singapore goods. They want to export to this place.
In fact, the only way to survive is to be in Malaysia. And here the relationship between Malaysia and Singapore is so bad that how can they have a reunion? In fact, the ultimate goal of our socialists in this country is to have a merger with Malaysia. Of course, many people will be reluctant to see merger. Malaysia, that kind of country, is now so much trouble, so much racialism and all that. But you see, this is a consequence of the lack of left-wing influence. You're seeing that. If we had been inside there all these 40 years, I don't believe it would be like that. They've been suppressing the left both in Singapore and in Malaysia. The Labour Party couldn't exist because they've been arresting thousands of people, not hundreds. They had to close down the Labour Party and the party riot. All the top leaders were arrested. Dr. Rajakumar, Dr. Syed Hussein Ali. So it's a free for all those conservative groups, Tunku Abdul Rahman, the racialist groups. But I'm happy that the Pakatan is coming up, and now the Malays are awakened. The young Malays do not want this privileges of 4 to 1. And unless these people can wake up, there's no prospect of Malaysian society being changed.
Back in those days, you mentioned there were 50,000 people mobilized very fast, and then we have 200,000 people going to join the Sosialis plot.
Yeah.
So, what was the reaction of the people, the public, when Operation Barisan was launched and so many good people were captured? How did people react, and what were the repercussions of people who actually reacted? Were they like another wave of arrest? What was it like? Or were you just fearful? Because there was huge numbers.
I know. You see, when we were arrested, the main organization was destroyed. No one to mobilize anymore. All the top cadres, the second rank and third rank even, were all put in prison. The rest, either they run away or they keep quiet. Unless you got people to mobilize, you cannot have any reaction. Spontaneous reaction is difficult. In 1956, there was spontaneous reaction when the Lim Hock government was suppressing the Chinese school students and the trade unions. The riots were very spontaneous, and the Chinese newspaper played up the repression. And actually, it's the Chinese population that rose up. And I witnessed the riots, all very spontaneous. Nobody organized them. They just hate the government so much that anything that is symbolic of government is fair game for them to destroy. Street lamps, poster boxes, anything. But you don't have that in recent ones. Now, just now I allude to a British interest in Malaya. I will read out this part here, which is very important. The basic justification for the existence of Malaysia, Sir Gregory Torin, the British High Commissioner, in his speech at Eden Hall at the end of May 1963 said, quote, "Where do our interests lie? If we approach the problem from the point of view of enlightened self-interest, what conclusion do we arrive at? Here in Malaya, we have something like 400 million pounds sterling permanently invested, mostly in rubber and tin, investments which we cannot withdraw. This is far greater, for example, than our corresponding investment in India or Pakistan. Gold earnings from rubber and tin are, I believe, essential to our balance of payment." That is Britain's economy. So that's why they are very keen on suppressing the left in this area, because this to Britain is their interest.
Dr. Lim, what was your relationship with the other PAP leaders like Ho Chin Cha and Geng Sui before your arrest? And after your arrest, when you were arrested, do you know what they actually thought about it? And all have you had any opportunity to meet with any of them?
No. Toh Chin Chai was my lecturer in physiology when I was a student in the university. We did meet to talk about politics. He was then the chairman of the People's Action Party, and was very cursory, very superficial discussion. He knew that I was a founder member of the PAP. We go King Sui hardly any talk. He's a very aloof man. But we did talk with Mr. Byrne and Mr. Rajaratnam. Again, not very profoundly. Mainly to Lee Kuan Yew the rank.
Just a follow-up to that. I believe that you were not made a cadre member when that system was implemented in the PAP. Were you surprised?
No. Anyone very pro-left, all that, would not be made a cadre member. I was expelled from the PAP in 1959 after it came to power. Not even cadre member, not even ordinary member, even though I was a founder member.
Were there specific issues that led to
No specific issue. Lee Kuan Yew just don't like me. You see, at that time there were 3 members in charge of reviewing membership: Lee Kuan Yew, Ong Pang Boon, and Lim Shih Ping. Lim Shih Ping was subsequently arrested. So when my membership came up, Lee Kuan Yew tore it up and threw it in the wastebasket and looked at the other 2. The other 2 kept quiet. So that's called my membership.
Given that Najib has announced in Malaysia that they will be abolishing the ISA, and given the opposite reaction from our government that they will steadfastly refuse to even amend the ISA, what are your views on why the government is so reluctant to give up its powers on the ISA, given that even when Lee Kuan Yew is gone, I do not see any of the younger ministers having the stomach to use the ISA so recklessly as he did.
Well, I made a speech at the memorial for Tan Ching Kui. I did point out that my assessment is that they are going to reserve the ISA as a reserve weapon to safeguard PAP's interests. I believe they will have the stomach to use it if they are first faced with the grim reality of losing in the general election. After all, Lee Hsien Loong is groomed by Lee Kuan Yew, groomed and monitored and mentored. So he is like Lee Kuan Yew. When faced with a reality, he will use it, and he will provoke you to have trouble.
Yeah.
Provoke. They won't straight away arrest you. They just provoke trouble, create a riot, blame it on you, and then use it as excuse to arrest. I think now the membership will not be unanimous on this. But comes to the worst, they will do it. I believe that they will do it. And that's why they are reserving it as a last weapon. Because now they are not very sure of a president backing up the whole thing. Next time there will be no president. And then the army, Lee Kuan Yew talked about calling in the army for a free election. I don't think Singapore Army is like these are national servicemen. You tell our national servicemen to fire at our population, I don't think they will do it. So ISA probably will be the only weapon. I hope it will not be used, but I think this is going to be their reserve weapon.